that they've opened. They've opened so many things.
So yeah, I think I mostly agree with that. I think I mostly agree with that. And it's particularly like, I mean, I think that maybe even the idea to go and study these things outside of the workspace is a suggestion of entities.
Right.
The only like thing I would say about that is that there are probably people who, whether they're public about this or not, are weary of such things. So they're using the consideration that that's a possibility when they're going into this. And just like, and you know, and this was something that I paid close attention to in the, you know, the chapter that we're going to talk a little bit about today, that whenever you open anything, light things can come in, dark things can come in. And so I think that that is somewhat symbolized in this idea of white lodge, black lodge symbolically in this. And then there becomes a battle between those things, right? And discernment for any of these people in terms of like, is this my idea? Or like, where did this come from? So, I mean, within any group of people, you and I both know this, right? There are people that are just nasty little fuckers. There are people that are like good people, but like misguided. And then there's people who either because they sort of come in that way or they develop it through having made mistakes in both directions, develop a level of discernment where it is possible to get some level of clear assessment on what is happening. And those, I think, are the people that we learn from, and Rudolf Steiner. And yeah, I'm 100% certain he was exposed to all of these kinds of things that we're talking about through people he had contact with or things he worked on. I'm also quite a fan of Walter Russell, and I know that they were fond of each other's work. And the thing I appreciate with Walter Russell is the amount of sort of diagrams and graphs and sort of like things to look at to sort of understand things that he produced, and then the way he draws the parallel between like the individual and the larger system, like, you know, that it helps me to visualize it that way. But I'm certain that they arrived at their assessment through like long thinking about all of the things that they had been exposed to or witnessed or whatever, based on where their intellectual pursuits and the people they worked with had taken them, right?
Yeah, they and I see Steiner. I don't know Walter Russell, so I can't speak to that, but I see Steiner as he went in and found it in the true way. He found it so that it's not abstract thinking or, oh, I just, you know, I have a theory about something. It wasn't any of that. It was, he went in and engaged it, saw it, engaged it, lived it, really, and came back with that. So there's a man who's trying to take what we were talking about earlier, who's trying to take what is not really readily available to our daily consciousness. He's gone in, he's got it. Now he's coming back. I often think about this. This man must have broken into sweats trying to talk about it. And then coming back and trying to use words and language for the, maybe not always just the average person, people that were seeking, that were genuinely seeking, but how challenging was that to, you know, I mean, you know this, I mean, even my kind of the esoteric part of what I went through, and you know, they pushed me to the point of making me have access to things that, I mean, that's just, to me, that's a natural part of it. You torture and traumatize someone for that long and that often, their mind is not only going to split in the sense of creating alternate personalities, it's going to, I was pushed into realms that I didn't even know what they were, you know, and to this day, I will claim I was never in control of that. And even things that can happen now, they're random. They're just events that happen. They're not frightening at all to me. I learn from them. And I, in some ways, can utilize that. But so in other words, you know, when I look at someone like Dr. Rudolf Steiner, I can't even imagine the challenge of what he was attempting to do. And this was his destiny. This was his life purpose. And I don't know if you know this, but he was given a window of time to do this by spiritual hierarchies. He had a window, and you got to get it done in this time. And then it's going to get, shut off, that you can't deliver that to the common populace anymore. So yeah, I think I know there's things that are at work that are ineffable. There's just no way to really truly to talk about this in a way that's in a way that somebody else, is really going to grasp. It's kind of you got to go there, you got to be there. And that's really the only way that it becomes. But I do believe he was an incredibly gifted person in the ability to relay this, so that even whether it was back then 100 years ago or now, that to me, his material, his what we call spiritual science, his lectures, his books, is the way of initiation. The old way of initiation, he says it, we don't even have to do that anymore. It's a new way of doing it. And he gives exercises and practices. So we're talking, cenote, we're talking about what doesn't readily absorb into consciousness, in your daily consciousness. It kind of leaves you with a
Yeah.
So
Walter Russell is like very similar. He's a different human being, obviously, but someone who was probably inspired in a similar way, but in his own way, right? And he's also contemporary to about the same. One of them may be a little bit older than the other, but produced a number of works in a number of different sort of separate but related fields that kind of gave allowed him to create sort of an overall picture of, in his own language and using his own sort of artwork and diagrams, explain a very similar type of thing.
cool. I'll check him out.
Yeah. So I think that that's exactly right. Like, the initiation that comes from true understanding does not require all of the things that, like, a person like me who was not raised with any religiosity would like look at it and go like, what is all that like weird hocus pocus about? Right. And so, because it's true understanding, it's not like some like symbolic weird routine that's supposed to represent understanding that you may or may not have, but you're very excited about doing this weird routine or something. Right. So, okay.